Welcome to the MCUniverse, where the Lorehounds, your guides to the multiverse and beyond. I'm David.
I'm Jean.
And I'm Elysia, and we're your guides to the many possibilities of the Marvel multiverse.
Season 2 of Marvel's What If will begin on December 22nd on Disney+. And we're going to talk about what to expect, the episode titles, a release schedule, and what characters are showing up.
But first, Jean and I are going to have story time. We'll be walking David and anyone else who hasn't had time to watch season 1 or who just needs a refresher through everything that happened, how it all came together, and which stories will be continued in the new season.
We'd also love to hear your thoughts about What If as we discuss the new season. Email your feedback to mcu@thelorehounds.com or head over to our website at thelorehounds.com and use the contact form or record us a voicemail.
For ad-free versions of this and all of our podcasts, check us out at patreon.com/thelorehounds. I'll share more about our Patreon benefits as well as programming notes for the end of the year and the beginning of the new year at the end of the podcast.
Also, we'd be forever grateful if you could help us get more ears tuned into the Lorehounds MCUniverse. All you need to do is drop us a 5-star rating and review wherever you're listening. Apple Podcasts is especially helpful. And yeah, even if it's just a few quick words, we read all the reviews and they mean a lot to us.
And before we get started, just a quick spoiler warning. We'll, of course, be spoiling all of the Marvel What If Season 1 episodes, and anything is on the table, including Marvel Comics.
Jean, Elysia, good to see you guys. It's been a minute since we've all been together on the microphones after that triumphant Loki season finale. How you guys feeling?
At least we went out on a high.
Yes, we did. That was
unlike the previous one.
I still got some feels from that show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Very good.
Ranking high on the end of year top 10 list.
Very high.
Better make everybody's top 10 list.
It made pretty high in the community rankings, which we will cover on our Patreon. Well, it's not Patreon exclusive because it's our present to everyone, but on our end of year top 10s, John and I will be doing a podcast where we cover our top 10s. But this year we also did a community draft where we put out a survey. Everyone was able to put in their shows from 10 to 1, and then their bonus questions about guilty pleasures. Well, should pleasure be guilty? That's a good question somebody brought up. The biggest miss and the most anticipated shows. And we're going to make that data available. We're going to publish like a little article, I think, on our website. We got a cool visualization of the shows and how they rank and everything like that. And I will say that Loki made it much higher up the list than I was surprised.
I am not surprised.
No. John and I have been believers
surprised.
the whole time.
Yes,
That's right.
Yes.
And the show that shall not be named didn't show up at all.
Yeah.
Or did it? I don't remember.
No, I don't think so.
There's no way that...
Not even a guilty pleasure.
There's no way. It's impossible.
And
I would refuse to believe it.
I looked through the guilty pleasures, by the way, and I think I had by far the most embarrassing one. So people are not being honest.
I'll have to go back to the spreadsheet, dredge up your title.
Nobody else.
Anyway, look for all of that stuff.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun pulling that together, and hopefully we'll be able to do that year on year. And that is a Patreon exclusive that those who are subscribers got to throw in their rankings. Before we get into our Marvel lineup for today, I wanted to give Jean a little space because I wanted to get his point of view on Leave the World Behind, which is the latest Sam Esmail movie, which is on Netflix. Brandon and I did a full podcast on that. We did a spoiler-free review on the front side, and then we take a break, and then the back half of the podcast is detailed conversations about plot, themes, and all that kind of stuff. Brandon and I both really enjoyed the movie, and I know Jean was interested. And so, Jean, you watched it the other day.
I did.
Spoiler free. What did you think of the movie? Should people go see it, or
yes.
put it on Netflix?
Yeah, you should stream it. I think I enjoyed it. I really did. Mahershala Ali, is captivating on screen.
Incredible. Yeah.
So. Please,
great cast.
Let's get this Blade movie going.
That's
let's get this going. But he is great on screen. I just think he brings a gravitas to situations that is just like really engrossing.
He's
But I
also
thought-
charming at the same time of having gravity.
Yes.
And he's likable and approachable, and there's an intimacy that you can establish, even though his presence is so powerful.
Yeah. And,
he would make a great Blade, just saying.
Yeah.
The campaign has already started.
Well, I mean, it's already won.
So, we already won. We just need to get it to go. Let's go.
Just get it on screen before he leaves.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go before he loses interest. You know what I mean? Let's get this going. But the movie itself, I thought all the characters were really well done. The plot itself, the ambiguity to it, I really liked. And yeah, I just
without
thought that
spoilers, like you really do, feel what it might be like to be part of a bigger ongoing global event where you're
have no idea.
And you have no idea what's going on. You're cut off from information. In all of our other disaster movies, Mr. President, the asteroid is going to impact the Earth in 46 hours. And if we don't, all life will be extinguished. And we see the asteroid and we see all this stuff. In this, we're not. We're right down with the characters as they're
trying to learn what's happening, trying to understand what we're going through. And I thought it was just really captivating. I really enjoyed that aspect of it, of not knowing and being put in the situation with the characters that I'm watching on screen, of not understanding what's happening and trying to figure it all out, trying to piece it together by, the things that have happened in my own life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're reflecting on what's going on and what's happened to them to lead up to this point, right? How can we figure out what's going on as it relates to our lives? And I thought it was really well done. I thought I enjoyed it. I thought some of the conversations between characters was awesome. There's a lot to the movie. It's not just a disaster flick.
There's race, there's class, there's family dynamics, there's global politics and economy. And Sam Esmail is saying a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
There's a lot of commentary.
The last thing I'll say about this as well is that there are themes in the movie that for a character that we don't fully understand. And I was okay with that because that's life. I have friends who are angry or sad or, happy-go-lucky, whatever it may be. And I try to understand why they are the way that they are, and I don't. And I think that's
There's
very
some stuff
real
beyond understanding. Yeah.
Yeah. There's things that go on in people's lives that you don't know why they turn out the way that they are. And I think that's okay to have in a film, to have that, to make it characters who are angry and we want to know why they're angry, but we just don't get the answer. I'm fine with that.
Right.
I'm fine with that. I just thought it was I enjoyed the movie, man.
It's challenging in a way that it's not uncomfortable, but it leaves you questioning and it makes you think about things.
And I definitely would like to see more of this world.
Yeah. And Sam Esmail is such a director's director. He's I've heard interviews with him and he's saying, F plot, right? Like forget plot. TV and movies are a visual medium, so work towards the visual medium. And so that's his statement on being a showrunner, writer, producer of, visual stuff. And he executes that. And especially in this movie, the camera work, the way that they use the camera, the way that they signal weird, things to you right off the bat, the way that they use the camera is telling you, don't expect what you're normally going to expect from a movie that would fall into a disaster apocalypse, storytelling. We're doing something different here. And he uses the camera to tell you that. And the way that they innovate with the camera movements, flipping things around, rotating overhead shots, all of this stuff, it was just visually, it was just an incredible feast. So yeah, highly, highly recommend going to see it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah. Check it out.
Check out the pod with Brandon. The first 30 minutes or so are spoiler free. And then we start taking it apart from there. I know, Elysia, you were interested in checking it out.
Yeah, I started it and it's intriguing. I need to finish it. Been caught
Give it
up
some
in Beacon
space.
23. Yeah, give it some space.
Right, yeah.
I said I was comparing the cinematography to Saltburn, and I was like, I just need
Okay.
to let Saltburn get out of my head. Which, for the record, yes, there's some gross scenes, but I like that movie. So
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, cool. Well, thanks for indulging us on that. Yeah, it's just if you're into a certain kind of film, it doesn't even have to be into a certain kind of film. Like, see this film and let it affect you. Cool. All right, so let's start getting into some Marvel stuff. We have a voicemail from friend of the pod, Dork of the Ninjas. He had some feedback from Marvels, from the Marvels movies back in the day. So let's play that, and we'll use that to kick off our general Marvel news before we get into looking back on season 1 of What If. So here's Dork of the Ninjas.
Hey guys, just want to get my quick thoughts on the Marvels. Just wanted to say that I probably enjoyed this movie a lot more than a lot of people. I went in kind of expecting just a little bit of a fun time, not trying to think about it too seriously. I honestly thought the Flurkin scene was hilarious, even though some people, I can understand why they think that's stupid, but I just loved watching the panic set in for so many people, and then just how that went was silly. And of course, I actually enjoyed the little song and dance planet. I was aware of a lot of those two things coming in, and I was like, okay, let's see what if this is stupid, like people are saying. And I was like, no, these are just silly. Like, I did not expect a super serious time with this movie. So I just have to really enjoy how silly it could be at points. I very much enjoyed the action. I think it's probably some of my favorite action scenes in any of the MCU, just because it's a creative concept of like the switching and stuff like that when the powers get activated. So
freaky fight.
Just watching them just react and see how that happens. Like the first major scene when that happens with the stuff happening in Ms. Marvel's house, and then the stuff in the space elevator, and then of course the stuff on the actual ship, just watching them react to what's happening and just see the panic that's happening is really fun to watch overall. But I liked the movie a lot. I don't think it's like top of the end Marvel, but like it fits firmly in the middle of the pack of okay Marvel movies. Not great, not awful. Okay. I enjoyed watching it, and I'll probably watch it again eventually, like when it comes time to probably whenever they get into more X-Men stuff, because hey, we got X-Men in the MCU to a degree, because getting Kelsey Grammer Beast back was really cool to see.
Yeah.
But hopefully they don't mess that up, but we'll see. I expect them to at least handle some of that coming in pretty nicely. I honestly want to see if that Beast that we saw there was supposed to be Beast from the original Fox X-Men universe, or if it was supposed to be Beast from the 1997 X-Men comic series, like TV series, because it kind of looks like more like that to me. That's just a thought that I had, but that's something I just want to throw out there. You guys have a good day, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you before for Echo when that comes out.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate you voicemailing in. Always like your takes. Send us more. I am, I think, in the same boat as him. And I was just thinking about, would I rewatch this movie? I definitely want to rewatch the opening fight scene where they do the powers intertwining. I want to see that again, because that was a really fun romp. Jean, what are your thoughts? Are you going to be watching?
Yeah, I'm going to watch it more than once again. I'm going to rewatch it, and I'm probably going to watch it after I rewatch it. I really like this. I like the movie, man. I really, I just like the vibe of the movie. It, there was some really cool things, like I said in our review. I just like the Miss Marvel and her family dynamics. I really enjoyed that, and that's something that I want to see more of in these superhero movies, to get away from the tropes of, how I feel about the canon event. Yeah. So I'm just really, I liked the movie, and I thought it was a nice, fun movie. And it's probably something that I would, if it was out on streaming right now, I would watch it with my sisters and my nieces, at my mom's house over the holidays. We would put it on to watch it all together. Right. That's the type of film that we would all, enjoy to watch together. So yeah, I'm going to watch it again multiple times.
Yeah, Elysia?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely any MCU movie. I'm probably even going to rewatch Secret Invasion.
No, come on. That's a bridge too far. Now you're going. You got. No,
I mean, yeah, because at some point, when you're doing the full all the way through watch, but the point is, the Marvels is one I'm going to go out of my way to rewatch again. And I actually did bring it up with my family. I was like, it's a shame if it were out on streaming. I think that would be a great one for all of us to watch together.
Yeah.
Now, my one major complaint is that I think they cut too much, especially of Aladna. And I just have to call Hollywood out in general for a minute right now because I have a pet peeve.
Go ahead.
The fact that they are trying to bury anything musical related as if there isn't a huge audience for that. So, for instance, movies like The Color Purple, like Wonka, this movie where they cut out a bunch of the musical section because they say, well, test audiences aren't enjoying the musical part, so we have to hide that it's a musical to trick them into seeing it. And I'm like, well, then that's how you get unhappy audiences, when just appeal to the people who want that, because we exist, we're here, we've always been here. It's, musicals have always had a strong place in cinematic history. And I feel like the way they're shying off of it is only hurting the film going experience.
Right.
Rant over.
The worldwide numbers aren't bad. It's over 200 million. I think it's going to do great on streaming. Yeah. I think the doomsayers are doomsaying a little too much. I think this was a solid movie, and I think it kicks off this pivot for the Marvel Studios, which I guess brings us nicely into talking about some Marvel's or news, MCU news in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going into the next years, going into Echo. We're going to talk about that in a second. I'm bullish. I think we're going to be okay. I don't think this is the death knell. I think they're figuring out how to plug the holes and bail the water out of the ship and keep everything afloat.
Agreed.
All right. So first up, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, but the naysayers are louder than ever. Like even yesterday, all Twitter of Time was busy with a bunch of people saying that that the Wheel of Time was going to be canceled if one specific relationship didn't work out. Which, okay. All right, sure.
All right. The internet's going to internet. Exactly,
yeah.
Right? The internets are going to internet.
But, and speaking of naysayers, one thing that people were naysaying that doesn't seem to, maybe we were speaking too soon, is we know that the writer and director who were on the Kang Dynasty movie were moved to other projects. And so people are like, oh, it's canceled. Kang is canceled. But now we know that Michael Waldron, who is the creator of Loki and who wrote The Multiverse of Madness, has been tapped to write the Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. So this wasn't like a canceling of that storyline, but a shifting.
Okay.
And of course, recasting remains more than ever up in the air. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Reassigning.
But, I mean, recasting Kang, but we don't need to touch on that again. But it seems like it's going forward, so.
Recast T'Challa while we're at it.
Right.
Recast T'Challa while we're at it.
Don't be afraid of it, right? Just if you got to do it, you got to do it.
You've done it before. It's fine.
Right?
Give me a new T'Challa.
Yeah. We'll be fine. We'll be okay. We're big kids. We can handle it.
We're big kids. Recast T'Challa.
We're about to talk about T'Challa a lot.
And weren't the filmer, whatever you want to call them, the principal directors of Loki also signed up to do some new stuff as well? I thought I saw there.
So Benson and Moorhead, the directors of season 2 of Loki, have been tapped to be the new directors of the Daredevil series.
Oh, the reboot on. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Maybe they'll bring a nice sensibility to that, because that's got to be like gritty street level stuff, right? Like what we're seeing.
Yeah, exactly. It should be, we know Daredevil's going to briefly show up in Echo.
Well, let's talk about Echo really quick while we're here, and then we can flick to Deadpool after we do that. A new trailer just dropped, and I think both you guys have seen it. I just watched it before we got on the microphones. Wow. Is this Disney by night or what's up? Is this like...
This is what Disney looks like in Europe. We don't have your Hulu.
It was dark and violent, and the ending shot was incredible. I was like, wait, is that really what I think they're doing here? They're a cleanup crew, like they're going. Wow. What did you guys think?
I mean, for people who are looking for, Wilson Fisk is obviously a main character in this, and people who are looking for a continuation of the Netflix Daredevil, gritty violence, here we go.
That would be me.
Yeah, Vincent, I can never pronounce his last name. D'Onofrio, thank you. He looks incredible. He was born to play this role. He's so perfect for it. Jean, are you hyped for Echo from what you're seeing in the trailer so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I hope they don't mess it up. Because,
wait, that's always the caveat with a Marvel title.
But no, but the early reviews are strong. The people who have seen it,
are they?
Yeah, are saying really good things, and also just like how they lean into this the Choctaw heritage that they've given her.
Okay.
Yeah,
some flashback
it's supposed to be quite cool. Well, also how it affects her powers and just how it's woven into her story,
right?
And like the whole deaf side of the story too, and her relationship with Fisk. These are the things I'm hearing are just really making it a unique, powerful show.
Okay, all right.
The thing is, I think every show that Fisk has been in has been really good. I'm just saying, every time Kingpin shows up in one of these Marvel shows, it's been a good story. So I'm excited to see it. It looks like it's going to be awesome. So,
all right. So coverage plans, we are definitely going to cover it. And we talked earlier today about what we're going to do, and I've already forgotten what it is.
There's a lot. It
drops on the 10th is the listed date for January 10th.
Yeah. The trailer yesterday said the 9th, but that's probably just in the US or the Americas.
Okay. So that second week of January, middle of the week, we've got 5 episodes on a binge, which is interesting because Disney doesn't binge normally. So I wonder why they're going, maybe they're experimenting with it or who knows, whatever. Disney's going to Disney. And we're going to tentatively try to pick up full season binged coverage that weekend. So with recording times and editing times, look for it early, sometime maybe around the 15th. We'll be able to get a pod into your pod players as soon as we can. But we're super excited. So this is getting big time coverage.
And we're gonna preview it when we do our wrap up for season 2 of What If.
Oh, that's right.
We're going to remind you of what you need to remember about Echo's story from. I mean, ostensibly, this is a spotlight thing. You don't need to remember anything, but we're still going to remind you what happened with her in the Hawkeye show and things like that.
Right. Yeah. That's one of the promises of our MCU show is that we always set context before a title comes out so that when you going into it, you have a little bit of awareness. Okay, cool. Excited for that. Deadpool 3. What's up with Deadpool?
I mean, I think just we're seeing tons of set photos and things like that from both Deadpool 3 and the Agatha show, which it's Don't Shoot the Messenger. It's changed its name again.
What? Not again? Are you serious?
Maybe, I don't know if the new one's been announced officially, but reports are that it's going to be called Agatha All Along, which frankly, that's the smartest one. You already have the theme song. Right. Plug and play. But yeah, this is title number 4, if this is true.
Oh, Lordy.
But what's been seen from the sets and also that Witch's Road, you sort of, I don't know if it's going to be a special presentation or what they're going to end up calling that. But it's looking very promising, looking like a lot of fun. Like there might even be a little sprinkle of, what's it called? The Halloween movie with Bette Midler?
The Witches or something.
No, it's really, you guys are going to be like, oh, Hocus Pocus.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
So it's almost feels like it's got a little sprinkle of like Hocus Pocus in it. Like that's camp witchiness, which I love. I'm going to be so excited about. We have to get Marilyn to watch this one too. And Deadpool 3, sure. Meanwhile, the cameo rumors.
Okay, real quick before Deadpool 3, do we have a date for Agatha?
It's probably going to be around fall of 2024.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So later in the year. So we got time. Okay, cool. All right. Deadpool 3.
Deadpool 3 is looking like it's going to be, people are calling it the No Way Home of the Fox universe. So the cameo list is, rumors are running rampant, but it seems like they're going to bring back, things like multiple Daredevils and obviously the old X-Men cast. And it's sounding like it's going to be a crazy multiverse hopping adventure.
Okay. All right. John, is Deadpool one of your favorite characters? I was not a huge fan of that style.
I'm not a Wade fan.
Okay.
I'm not a Wade fan in comics or on screen. I know he's a fave of a lot of folks.
Yeah, for sure.
For me, he's not one of my favorite characters at all. And Ryan Reynolds tends to grate on me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's even worse with his portrayal. But I've seen the movies, I'm gonna watch this movie, obviously.
Right.
And, I might even enjoy it more than the other two, because I'm hoping that it's the end of, it brings a finality to the entire, Fox universe. So that's
people
what I'm
are calling
hoping.
It that, like Deadpool kills the Fox universe.
Yes. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
All right. Fair enough. What's next on our list here? Animation announcements?
At the What If Season 2 launch event, they made a few announcements. So Marvel has officially, we've talked previously about the Spider-Man freshman year and sophomore year animated shows that are supposed to come out in 2024. They changed it to Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Fine. Maybe that means they want to go for longer. I don't know. And then the other one that was somewhat of a surprise. I mean, there's a lot of Wakanda things on the docket, but they've announced for 2024 a new animated series called Eyes of Wakanda. And the official summary is, throughout Wakandan history, brave warriors have been tasked to travel the world retrieving dangerous vibranium artifacts. This is their story. Does that intrigue you guys?
I instantly thought of you guys when I saw this. It's going to be animated, so they can do a lot more with the story, right? And it could be a nice little procedural. And I think it stars the Dora Laje, right? It's sort of around. I think it centers around them.
Yeah, I don't know about, maybe because they were working on. We thought they were doing like a Midnight Angel series, but then they kind of jammed part of that storyline into Black Panther 2, which, the disservice to that storyline is what I object to most in Black Panther 2. So I don't know. There was they had a lot of ideas about what they were going to do about Wakanda, because it's kind of one of the most exciting parts of the Marvel universe right now. And it's hard to say what's going to shake out.
Jean is strangely silent on this topic.
I mean, can we just cut to the chase? Let's just call it what it is. Recast T'Challa. That's all you need to do. Like,
the unavoidable issue.
That's the whole. They're going around the obvious elephant in the room. I'm not saying this is not going to be good. I'm not saying that I won't possibly enjoy it. When I saw it, I'm just like, this is not what I want. It's not what I want. I don't want Wakanda without a Black Panther named T'Challa.
Okay.
Shuri's great. She was Black Panther in the comic books. But you know what happened in those comic books? T'Challa was still here doing other great shit. We don't have to have this one or the other.
But I think if
there's space to tell these stories, and they're avoiding telling these stories because they're refusing to recast.
But
T'Challa. Recast the character.
If it does happen, there's no way they can do it in the story before Secret Wars. So, I mean, I think there is a good chance in Secret Wars they might, especially because there are a lot of people like you who are like screaming this, like, come on, we want those stories. But I don't see how they could bring in a new T'Challa at this point before Secret Wars, given, without besmirching the send-off that this T'Challa got in Wakanda Forever.
I don't think you besmirch the send-off.
But you can't just say like that didn't happen.
I think you can say that. You can not erasing his death. Not erasing his death. I totally get that. I'm not trying to erase Chadwick from the annals of the MCU. That would be totally ridiculous because the guy encapsulated so much of what we wanted from that character. He was Black Panther, right? He's not the Black Panther.
Right. I mean, I can see them bringing in a new T'Challa, a new adult T'Challa, because we do have kid T'Challa, but I know.
I'm gonna nerd off on this podcast right now.
But I could see them bringing in someone at Secret Wars, but I don't know how they do it before that.
I'm of the firm belief that since we have the multiverse of madness, since we have America Chavez, who's breaking through universes, since we have
the
what,
but that's what I think is going to happen.
We have the what if. We have the what if characters who have already established the multiverse. There. We have all of this evidence that there is more than one Marvel universe. Now we have Loki that is effectively telling us there are other branches, other universes there that he's keeping alive.
Right. We have different Lokis. We have alligator Lokis. We have, so
recasting the character before Secret Wars can happen. It should happen. It needs to happen.
Reality and
yeah. I mean, let's go. Let's go. This is the idea that this singular character cannot be played by someone else is a disservice to Chadwick, and it's a disservice to the fans. It's not true. You would never hear we can't recast Superman. You would never hear we can't recast Batman. You would never hear we can't recast Iron Man. We can't recast Captain America, which they're going to do. Right? They're going to do these things. Thor will be recast.
Right.
Let's just, the idea that we can't do it for this particular character is insulting, and it makes no sense to me because Chadwick will always be on a pedestal. Putting someone else in the title role, Black Panther, doesn't take him off the pedestal.
I mean, they are. I'm looking at for What If season 2. So for What If season 2, I do wonder if we know T'Chaka's going to be in there. We know they're going to be picking up some storylines where T'Challa was present. I wonder if they have recast the voice at least, which is step 1, right? So this means adult T'Challa is still alive in the multiverse in other multiple planes. Yeah.
Right.
Star-Lord T'Challa and all that.
Right.
So I don't know. Yeah, they could find a way to bring that over into live action.
And from the story standpoint, this universe's T'Challa, he didn't die because a bad guy killed him or, something happened. It was just the start of the movie. We got to deal with the fact that, he
contracted
Chadwick anymore.
Right.
It doesn't impact the larger narrative structure.
Right.
In that way, because there's nothing else connected to it. It was just sort of this little bottle thing that they just had to kind of deal with at the front side to get Shuri into position. And Shuri can still be a Black Panther. We just need a T'Challa character.
We have 2 Hawkeyes right now,
right? I mean, Shuri can still do. Yeah,
that's all I'm saying. I'm not taking Shuri out of the role because, like I said, she was the Black Panther in the comics for a run, and it was a great run. I liked her character. I liked how she portrayed the character, but I also liked the dynamic that she had with her brother when he wasn't the holder of the mantle.
Yeah,
and he was off doing other really great stuff. They were both doing great stuff in the service of Wakanda and of Earth.
Right. Yeah, because we now have a larger plate. Earth can be, out in the universe doing other stuff. T'Challa just doesn't have to necessarily be on Earth in Wakanda.
Right. And
in space.
When I heard Eyes of Wakanda, that's the first thing I thought about was that they are, trying desperately, almost inexplicably, not talking about the elephant in the room.
Right.
But I still will watch the show.
Fair enough. All right, cool. I think that wraps us up for Marvel news of import at this stage. We will, as always, keep our eyes and ears peeled and keep everyone posted as on each of our podcasts. But now let's turn our focus to What If Season 1. Elysia, you set up a structure for us. Again, thank you so much always for your efforts in this regard to keep us organized and pointed. What is our setup for our What If Season 1?
Yeah, so just going to set up the season quickly, what it is, how it came about, who made it. And then Jean and I are going to take turns basically episode by episode having story time for you and anyone else who wants the recap, which I think is probably most people, because even people who've watched it's been a while.
I have to say, I watched a couple of the first episodes and it wasn't, I had a hard time getting into it. And maybe I could use your guys' help a little bit in terms of story time, right? You know, I'll sit down in front of the fireplace with a warm glass of milk and let you guys bring me into the universe.
Well, so, I mean, it is a show. It's ostensibly an anthology show, although that's kind of not really true by the end. The episodes are uneven. There are some episodes that are some of the best storytelling that the MCU's done, and some that are really like, meh. What did you think of season 1, Jean?
I thought it was overall it was a good season. It was a good viewing. Some of the episodes were, like you said, and the ones that I liked.
I think a lot of it does play on the interconnectedness of the MCU, so it really is for the Marvel geeks. But it also sets up a lot of possibilities, like bringing in a new adult T'Challa.
And how much do these have impact on the main storylines? Are they just sort of are they literally just, what if this happened? And it's just kind of fun because it was born out of the comics, right?
The comics are more disconnected than this. This is more connected. This does play into, like, for instance, we saw Captain Carter as a star of the first episode of the first season, and she'll be in the second season too. And we saw, at least probably not the exact same version of her, but we saw a version of her in Multiverse of Madness. So it really is, this is a fuel for alternate universes that could cross over with the live action.
Okay. And these came out of comics. So what's the origin story there?
There are What If comics dating back, 40 years, just telling different stories from a different perspective. This was the original multiverse.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. This was because these comics were the Watcher saying, this is how it played out on your Earth, but on another Earth, this is how this story played out and what the consequences of the story playing out differently. So the What If comics served as the original multiverse entry point for comic book readers to envision the stories that they knew well, and then, with a little change here, a little push there, what the story would be like if those changes actually happened on their Earth.
And it was a fun way to play with the comics, right?
Yeah, definitely. It gave you different, switch ups.
It makes me think of, like, if you were a kid of an age and you had action figures and you had a Superman action figure with a Luke Skywalker action figure, and it's like, what if, right?
It's like Star Wars Visions
characters were in the same universe.
Sort of the Star Wars version of What If.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
But so these episodes, though, they're not directly based on any specific comics, but they're based on what if set within the MCU. So each one is tied to pretty much a specific movie and then kind of branches from there. So you can think of these as like the timelines that the TVA would prune.
Interesting. A question about the Watcher and Jeffrey Wright, who plays the voice of the Watcher in most of what we see. That's got to be a sweet deal. He just gets paid for every once in a while recording some audio. He can just do it in his closet, and it's all good. Do we know if we're ever going to see Jeffrey Wright as the Watcher in, like, more substantial
I feel like we will.
Just these ethereal voices?
I feel like we will. I mean,
yeah. I agree.
And I'm sure he records in a studio before people add us.
I know, I'm
Not in his
joking.
closet.
But it could be he just shows up, right? Records some lines and then collects a check, and then hey, great, that's awesome. So does the Watcher? But it's just the Watcher is just literally the Watcher. He's
well, we're going to be talking a lot about that.
Normally,
that's good. That's kind of the thrust of the season,
right? And the whole premise of the what if is that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the series,
cool.
Just to mention some of the names behind it, was created by A.C. Bradley, who's one of the writers for the Troll Hunter series, and also the head writer and producer of seasons 1 and 2 of this, and also worked on Ms. Marvel. And the director is Brian Andrews, who started out as a very prolific storyboard artist for working for decades with writing experience, and now is also the director of the Marvel Zombies, which is basically a spin-off of this season.
Right, and that's coming. Marvel Zombies is coming.
And Marvel Zombies is coming. And for speaking of the Watcher, so every episode starts with the same narration, and I feel like it should be read in Jean's voice.
Okay. All right. Well, let's take a quick break. And when we get back, we will get into doing a recap of season 1. And we're going to go episode by episode. So we're going to do a little recap about it, talk about what's important, and then we'll move on to the next one. And we are back. Okay, let's get into our season 1 look back. We're going to look at every episode. We're going to have a little synopsis of the story, some of the production details, and then we're going to talk about what is important out of these individual contexts. So let's go.
Time, space, reality. It's more than a linear path. It's a prism of endless possibilities where a single choice can branch out into infinite realities, creating alternate worlds from the one you know. I am the Watcher. I am your guide through these vast new realities. Follow me and ponder the question, what if?
It sounds like different timelines equal different universes, but Jean and I won't launch into that debate again. But I am curious if in the future, especially with what's going on with Loki, if they're going to clarify the distinction.
Oh, it's clear to me. It's very clear to me.
But in episode 4, like the Ancient One says she split the timeline, allowing 2 of your possible timelines to exist in one universe. So that's, anyway, that's the most clarification that we get.
Yeah,
there you go.
It's clear.
But I love the way, speaking of the Watcher, that he's just often, so basically as Jean and I are like doing our story times, you could just imagine the Watcher, it just appears in the background in the sky over the action that's coming. And it's actually nice. Really, I love the art of this. I know not everyone feels the same, but I think there's some beautiful images in the show.
Yes, I really love the animation.
I did always really like seeing the way that they faded the Watcher in and out of a background scene. It's sort of like if it's clouds or solar system or whatever, and then it slowly resolves or dissolves into a pattern that is the silhouette of the Watcher. Really clever use. I thought that visually was a lot of fun.
If I can say one thing, people should take note of how they did it, because in Love and Thunder, that would be the appropriate way to have portrayed eternity instead of what they did in that movie. So just a sidebar, quick note of my discontent for that film was part of the way they portrayed some of the cosmic entities that, we want to see on screen. So the way they did the Watcher in this animation was really on point.
Sounds good. All right, well, let's start with episode 1. What if Captain Carter were the first Avenger?
Yeah, so this episode was directed by Brian Andrews, who we talked about, and written by A.C. Bradley, the creator. And this is based on the Captain America, the first Avenger movie. And the change is that Peggy Carter and the others didn't leave to go into the observation room during Steve Rogers' super soldier procedure. So the undercover assassin Kruger attacked just as it was beginning, and Peggy had to jump in to undergo the procedure herself, or all that super soldier serum would go to waste. So, get your jammies ready, get out your cereal. It's time for story time. Here's a quick recap of everything that happened in this episode, the important points. So Peggy comes out of this capsule jacked, obviously, and the government, they're unsurprisingly upset that she's a woman, but she and Scrawny Steve are still sure like each other. There's talk of dancing, and Howard Stark, the brains of the government operations, is also on her side, and Steve's bestie, Bucky, is also cool too. Hydra, Hitler's supernatural science division, has been busy in Norway stealing an intense power source known as the Tesseract. So Peggy, as Captain Carter, and her Union Jack shield go to take down a bunch of Nazis to take it from them and capture their scientist, Zola. Howard uses the Tesseract to build the Hydra Stomper for Steve. It's a Hulk-sized Iron Man pre-prototype, and while Peggy goes to rescue Bucky and the Howling Commandos, Hydra, led by Red Skull, betrays the rest of the Nazis, talking about a true champion from beyond the stars. And in this version, when Captain Carter and company take out the train they're on, it's Steve in the Hydra Stomper who goes down with it instead of Bucky, which means they've lost the Tesseract too. So the rest of the heroes regroup to raid the Hydra stronghold, just in time to watch giant tentacles reaching through an interdimensional portal crush the Red Skull. But Steve and the Hydra Stomper are still intact, and Peggy pushes the tentacles back through the gates, promising Steve a dancing date Saturday night before she disappears to the other side. Nick Fury and Hawkeye later open that gate, and Captain Carter and bits of tentacles come flying out, but Captain Carter has missed her date by 70 years. The Watcher closes his narration. The end.
This is one of the ones that I watched, and I think, the way that you're surmising it actually makes it a little bit more interesting than what I watched. But then I'm wondering, I'm missing context because I've seen this stuff, but it just doesn't have that same wraparound importance to me, I guess, in some way.
This is the one that was most like the source material, I think, in terms of,
Okay.
Yes. It was a straight up, Captain America First Avenger.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So, but, I like the Peggy Carter character. So I'm partial to that character. I really enjoyed her. Blanking on the actress's name, the actor's name.
Haley Atwell.
I really enjoy
Haley Atwell.
Again, I really enjoy Haley Atwell's portrayal of that character. So I was cool with the story playing out from a different perspective, which is exactly what If is.
Yeah,
that's what you're asking, right?
Yeah.
Earlier, David. So
this one was really just the movie just swap one character.
Yes, this would be exactly what you would get in one of the comics early on, definitely. What if this happened instead of what you have read already?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly the same circumstances, except for one critical thing that changes the outcome of everything.
I think part of my lack of interest in this too was that I like the Captain America character, especially Civil War, Winter Soldier. I love that arc. The origin story movie with his international band of badasses, I just never got into that whole vibe of where he came from and how he got started. The Red Skull stuff is interesting. The origin of Hydra stuff is interesting. But yeah, as an overall story, it's one of my lesser favorites in the.
Yeah, I'm not a World War II guy.
Right.
Like watching those stories on screen, I think has become repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
And even in comic books, it's same to me, like watching those stories. So, but it was fine for what it was.
Sure.
This wasn't one of my favorite ones of the season. It was a fine way to start out. It shows what the format is going for, and this is one of the ones that we know is going to continue. Right. There are some interesting consequences of this story, like there's no Bucky Winter Soldier in this universe. I guess somebody else is guarding the Soul Stone because Red Skull's done.
Dead.
But I still think some people, Captain Carter obviously showed up in Multiverse of Madness in the universe that was labeled 838. But I think this must be a different Captain Carter because they wouldn't have us invest as much time in a version that Wanda was just going to slice in half with her own shield. So
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's going to be when they do cross over these characters with live action, will it be like Spider-Verse where the animated characters are always animated, or I'm just curious what they might do with that. Jean, did you get Darkseid vibes for the introduction of the champion of Hydra?
I didn't. I thought it was I very much got Elder God.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely what they're going for.
Lovecraftian. Yeah, it was totally Lovecraftian for me. So I didn't see it as like what we got in what was in Justice League, the movie,
right.
I should say.
Well, that's what the vibe I was getting.
Darkseid vibe. Yeah, I didn't get that, but I definitely got the Lovecraftian theme with the tentacles coming out and
I got
definitely.
Lovecraft Cthulhu from the
that's what they were going for. But there's a lot of discussion about what this creature might be, because a lot of people at first were like, it's Shumagoroth, but they don't have the rights to that because that belongs with the Conan universe. Right. And then we had another tentacle creature, Gargantos, in Multiverse of Madness, but I don't think it's that either. Some people think it might be a version of Hive.
Huh, okay. I thought it was what we'll get into at the end of the season.
Right. Well, I mean, it is. I think it's definitely the same creature we see show back up in episode 4 with Doctor Strange. Oh.
No, I'm thinking the end of the season, the final 2 episodes
of What If.
Yeah.
Of What If.
Okay.
I think when I first watched it back, that's the vibe that I get. That maybe he was talking about that character as being the savior.
Interesting. Okay.
That's what I got from it.
Okay.
Yeah. So if anyone wants more like of Haley Atwell as Peggy Carter in 616 or adjacent, then I definitely recommend the one shot, which is called Agent Carter. But I also especially recommend there's a 2-season series, pretty short to watch.
Not our one shot.
Yeah, the MCU one shot, which is just a short film. But the 2-season series, Agent Carter, is a lot of fun. Crosses over with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
All right, so let's move on to episode 2.
Yes.
What if T'Challa became a Star-Lord? Director Brian Andrews. The writer was Matthew Chauncey, who also worked on the Troll Hunter shows and contributed to Ms. Marvel and Thor 4. So, the change. Yondu sent Kraglin to Earth to kidnap Peter Quill instead of going himself, but Kraglin kidnapped T'Challa. They kept T'Challa and raised him. T'Challa is much, much, much more of a cool character than Peter Quill would ever could be.
We shouldn't have let you read this. I forgot about the Peter Quill hate.
Elysia, you set up this back and forth between you two, so you missed this one.
Oh, my Star-Lord, where have you been all my life? This is great. Oh, man. So this Star-Lord is really cool. He's like a space Robin Hood. And the Ravagers are his merry men. Like in Guardians, Star-Lord was sent to steal a Power Stone, but in this universe, he used to jumpstart a dying star and save a world. That's what he used it for. Because he said, no treasure is worth the good that can be done with it. The Ravagers party is in a space bar where Thanos shows up, but he's not the Thanos that we know. He's a really cool dude. He's a good guy because Star-Lord talked him down from the whole, let's erase half of the universe thing. Drax is a bartender. We meet Nebula, who has some great hair, and she's in a relationship with Star-Lord, who she calls Cha-Cha. She wants his crew to help us steal the Embers of Genesis, a special cosmic dust that can be used to terraform planets, from the Collector's Museum in Nowhere. Nowhere is the big celestial space head that's used as a base of operations for folks. The Collector is now a warlord, and he's basically one of the most powerful beings in this universe. During the heist, T'Challa's necklace unlocks a Wakandan flying craft, a spaceship that the Collector has collected. And then he learns that Yondu lied to him, that Wakanda wasn't destroyed, and T'Challa is torn. His father has been looking for him, and unbeknownst to him, he still has a family back on Earth, which puts this new family that he's, found in tenuous trouble. Nebula pays off a debt by betraying him, but it was part of a triple cross plan with T'Challa, who's helped by Howard the Duck and the Collector's captive, Karina, who liked what he said about what T'Challa said about not locking people up in cages. Ultimately, it's the adoptive daddies who come to the rescue. Yondu stays to help T'Challa, together locking the Collector in one of his own cages, and Thanos tries to sacrifice himself for Nebula, who instead sacrifices the embers of Genesis just to be able to save him. As terraforming takes over nowhere, Karina sicks the Collector's other captives on him, and Star-Lord and Yondu escape on the Wakandan ship, traveling all the way back to Earth, back to Wakanda, so that T'Challa could be reunited with his family. Meanwhile, in Kansas, Yondu failed to deliver Peter Quill to his father, the celestial Ego. Ego went to Earth and found it himself. Greeting his son in a Dairy Queen, Ego's eyes flash white before the Watcher warns that this might spell the end of the world. But that's for another day.
Yeah, this was definitely one of the highlights of this season. That's what everyone seems to think, and I agree. Big characters. We got a heist story. We got humor. We've got heart. Was this one of the ones you watched, David?
I got maybe halfway through this, I think, because as you were reading the overview, Jean, I was like, oh, I didn't watch some of this stuff. I definitely watched the beginning of it. And I remember, I think one of the things that bounced me out a little bit was how closely they were adhering to the movie voices. The actors of the movie, the actors who played the characters in the movies, they really tried to recreate those
a lot of them are the
voices.
same actors. Like for instance, Chadwick Boseman, this was probably his final performance released after his death. Yeah.
Really? Oh.
Yeah.
Gosh. And Damon Hansu?
Jimon Hansu, yeah.
That was him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. They were off enough that I thought they were replacement actors who were mimicking their voices. So maybe I got tripped up in that sort of production detail. So that's interesting. Okay. All right. Well, discovering my own. I'm not bought into the storylines, right? So we know that when we're not into the story, we nitpick on detail.
Right.
So noticing that there. So it sounds like it's a very complex story, though. Triple crosses and paying off debts and all that.
It's definitely
kind of
a heist story. It's definitely a heist story. In with an origin story. So both of those things they had to accomplish a lot in however long the episode was.
Right.
So they did a lot of background and they did a lot of seeding what's going to happen going forward in this episode.
Yeah, right. I mean, this was one though. It had a lot of heart too, with the father-child storylines, and the humor didn't always work for me in season 1 of What If, but this is one of the episodes where it really did. Like, I loved, speaking of Jimon Hansu, the whole Korath storyline where he ends up joining the team, and he can't stop complimenting Star-Lord even when they're fighting. He's like, well,
right.
So it was one of the best running gags,
that was kind of funny, that whole fawning over Star-Lord. Like, what if Star-Lord was Star-Lord, actually lived up to his wanted reputation as opposed to earned reputation.
I love Sean Gunn, so I love his Kraglin. And he was just going like full. He was reminding me. There's a TV show called Future Man, which is like a stupid sci-fi TV show that I really recommend anyone who likes stupid sci-fi humor. But he's talking about he's got 2 sea holes and 2 ear holes and 1 eat hole. So isn't he? Isn't that the right one?
That's funny.
And then, of course, his iconic line of Ravager never flies solo, which only T'Challa says.
Never flies solo. Only T'Challa says that. But this was one of my favorite episodes, as it was for many folks. Really got into the feels because of Chadwick. And, and any Star-Lord that is not the Star-Lord is a better Star-Lord.
John.
I do take some objection, though, to how quickly Thanos is just like forgiven. Nebula takes a little bit longer, which makes sense because he did spend her entire life torturing her. Like, we can't just forget that.
Yes.
Even if he's changed his mind about...
He's a terrible person.
Absolutely. But he did lose his other so-called children. They were all the Collector's children now. So he was fighting the ones who were assisting him in Infinity War. And
Right.
And of course, I love that Howard the Duck just keeps getting more attention. Like, I'll take the spinoff.
We need Steve and Anthony over here from Properly Howard movie reviews.
Howard the Duck sitting at a bar. I mean, having a drink. What could be better than that, right?
Do we know, is Howard the Duck going to feature in any future? Is he going to get a spinoff or a standalone?
We haven't heard anything.
But I don't know. They at least are going to include him any time that the Guardians of the Galaxy show up. He shows up.
Right. Okay.
So
fair enough. Along, what's the dog? Cosmo?
Cosmo, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cosmo, yes.
Cosmo does appear in this episode, I think. Maybe. Yeah. Anyway.
I think it was this episode.
At the end, he was in the episode.
Yeah. She, yeah.
Sorry, yes.
She.
Correct. Okay, episode 3. What if the world lost its mightiest heroes? I did not watch
this was not one of the best ones, but here we go. So it was directed by Brian Andrews and written by A.C. Bradley and Matthew Chauncey. So basically all of these are a combination of those 3 people working on it. The change is that Hope Van Dyne, the Wasp, has died. And her dad, Hank Pym, the original Ant-Man, played by Kirk Douglas, has gone off the deep end and is now killing all of the Avengers. But they don't know that at first. So this is set back on the Phase 1 timeline. And we have Nick Fury trying to put together the Avengers team. But a superhero serial killer is taking out those would-be Avengers one by one. So there's Black Widow. She gives Tony Stark a shot to help him, and it ends up killing him, and she's arrested and breaks out. And then when Thor comes to steal back his hammer from Fury and Hawkeye, Hawkeye's arrow is loosed against Hawkeye's will, killing Thor. And then Hawkeye's arrested and found dead in his cell. And Black Widow goes to Betty Ross for help, who tells her the damage was done by something very, very small. Nick Fury is furious, and Loki shows up with an army of Chitauri and ice magic to avenge his brother, just making everything worse. Elsewhere, Natasha uses Bruce Banner as a fake hostage, and then he's shot by something that forces him to Hulk out until he explodes. And Black Widow figures out who the killer really is after she catches him accessing the Avengers database via his dead daughter's name. But the only message she can leave Fury before she herself is killed is, "It's all about hope." Luckily, Fury's clever, and he has a pager that can call Captain Marvel, which he quickly puts away, deciding to make a deal with Loki instead, since Loki is currently local. Fury goes to Hope Van Dyne's grave to confront Pym, who's been shrinking himself tiny to kill the Avengers from the inside out. And Pym says he blames S.H.I.E.L.D. because Hope died on a mission. And then Loki shows up and helps Fury capture Pym, but then Loki decides to stay and take over Earth. But hey, there's world peace now. Fury isn't really ready to give up. And as the Watcher says that he believes in every universe that hope never dies, Fury uncovers a block of ice within which we can see the shield of Captain America. But when he welcomes back a captain over his shoulder, it's Captain Marvel standing there.
This sounds like actually an interesting storyline. It's disappointing that you say that it's one of the least well executed, I guess.
I don't know. It just didn't hit. What did you think, Sean, of this one?
As soon as Thor got killed with a bow and arrow, I said to myself, "This ain't it.
Okay.
This ain't it." Because there's no there. I don't care how deep powered he is. He's still Asgardian, right?
Right.
So, man-made bow and arrow, unless it's tipped by, vibranium, adamantium, and even then, he's still Thor. It would take more than that to kill him. So, that being the thing that killed Thor, I said, hell no. They lost me at that point.
A lot of people, it was the Hulk death that did it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I mean, so Hank Pym does like frequently flirt with the dark side in the comics, so it's not weird for him to be cast.
Yeah, he's a terrible character in the
So
comics.
it's not weird for him to be cast as a villain here, and that's cool. But the motivation here seemed really weak, so that's why I just kind of shrug at this episode.
I agree too. Like he's blaming S.H.I.E.L.D. for killing Hope, but he's not killing the people of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't make sense. Like, if you blame S.H.I.E.L.D., why is Nick Fury still alive? Because you want to kill his wife.
The other superheroes?
He doesn't even know these characters. Right, but he doesn't even know, he doesn't care about these people. So what is that doing for him? You're killing his dream? What's the motivation for killing Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Black Widow? Maybe Black Widow because she and him have been working together for a while, but there's nothing here that should make Fury sad. You know what I mean? Like if that's if it's to punish Nick Fury, it's to punish S.H.I.E.L.D., then how are these random deaths at this moment? Because they're not a team yet. They're not a team. So how are these random deaths, avenging your daughter? It didn't make sense.
I mean, and I just want to point out that he says Hope is killed on a mission outside Odessa. So first of all, this does make Hope one of the first Avengers. So I guess that's really the change. She joins the Avengers a lot sooner, but also it means that she was most likely killed by Bucky in Winter Soldier mode. And also it's the second death in his family after, like in the movies that we saw, he thinks his wife died in a previous mission. So, okay, just saying that, I completely agree with everything you're saying, Jean, but just saying that's the reasoning we're given, at least.
It doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. I hear it. I see it, and it's still weak as hell.
Fair enough.
There's a few things I do like about it that I think that we don't have actual Robert Downey Jr. or Scarlett Johansson reprising their roles in this one, but I think that Mike Wingert and Lake Bell do a good job. I think it's cool that it points out how much of Phase 1 took place over 1 week. So Iron Man 2, the Hulk, Thor, the Avengers, all this action was taking place in 1 week. And it is cool to see how that's brought together. And I think there's some funny lines, especially about Coulson and Clint Barton, talking about Thor, like talking about sniffing his hair. And Coulson's password is Steve, Steve, Steve. I heart Steve 0704. And although I wonder, how can he be having this password about loving Steve if Steve is just being thawed out of a block of ice? But anyway. And also, can you imagine if Samuel L. Jackson ever did like the Kung Fury sort of martial arts we saw Nick Fury doing in this episode?
Right. I can't imagine Samuel L. Jackson doing it because he's not that. Oh man, the Nick Fury that no.
Not one of the strongest.
No, this was a big no for me. The only interesting thing I would say about this episode is that it shows how, potentially Ant-Man can do different things that we haven't seen in the MCU. That's the only saving grace that I have about this episode. Okay. That's it.
Absolutely.
Got it. Okay, well, let's put that one in the books. And
the next one is my favorite.
Episode 4. Really? Okay. Episode 4. What if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hand? This is directed by Brian Andrews, written by A.C. Brad. The change. Christine Palmer joins Doctor Strange to speak at a conference instead of him going alone. And when he crashes, he doesn't just cripple his hands. The accident also kills her. Doctor Strange studies in Kamar-Taj has a darker, even more obsessive fervor. And obviously Wong and the Ancient One are concerned, especially after he gets his Time Stone toy. But he still faces off against Dormammu, becomes the Sorcerer Supreme, and then has time on his hands to try to fix the Christine problem. Using the Time Stone in the Eye of Agamotto, Strange really relives the car crash again and again, losing her every single time. The Ancient One shows up to try to stop him, but he can't stop. He can't accept that Christine's death is an absolute point in time, unchangeable, unmovable. Strange jumps into the ancient past looking for the library of Cagliostro. Did I say that right?
Cagliostro.
The source of the Eye of Agamotto. There we go. The source of the Eye of Agamotto he wears around his neck, manipulating time. There, the librarian, Obang, gives him full run of the library, where Stephen reads that he can gain the power he needs by absorbing great beings. He starts with a tentacled creature like the one we saw in episode 1, the champion of Hydra. It's too much for him, so he starts with smaller demons, stepping himself up in power one entity at a time. Finally, he takes the tentacles of the creature that bested him before. Obang is old and dying by this time, but satisfied with his life, he refuses to let Strange turn back time. He tells Strange he is but half a man living half a life. It turns out when Strange decided to desperately try to save Christine, the Ancient One split the timeline, creating another Strange who decided to let it go, so that he can try to stop his own darker intentions. If Dark Strange reverses the absolute point and saves Christine, the paradox will destroy the universe. The two Stranges confront each other and their shared universes now bleeding away. Doctor Strange is convinced that if they can remerge, they will be strong enough to save her. He started to look like the demons he's absorbed, gaunt, corrupted with the aspects of a dragon, a wolf, a snake, an elk, tentacles sprouting from his back. The Watcher wonders for the first time if he should intervene, but he mustn't, to protect all the other universes. The darker side wins this epic fight, reabsorbing his better half and tearing the fabric of his universe for one last moment with Christine. But she's horrified by the monster she sees before her. Then she starts to leak away like everything else. Strange sees the Watcher watching and begs him for help. But the Watcher says, "I am not a god, and neither are you." He can't interfere. Then Christine is gone. Her last words, "Stephen, what did you do?" And Strange Supreme is left alone, curled up in regret, in the small crystal bubble he created to save himself from the destruction of his world and his universe.
This is such
that one sounds dramatic.
Such a heavy episode. Yeah.
It was.
And like the Christine death montage, each time she dies a different way, because then he tries to stop doing the car accidents and he's like, well, let's just go to dinner instead. And then somebody accidentally shoots her and all this stuff. And the music, I have to shout out to the composer, Laura Karpman. She made wildly different music for every episode. It all worked so well. And this montage especially just really, I can't watch it without tearing up. So yeah.
So if I had a must-watch list, this would definitely be
yes,
absolutely, yeah. And also, you'll hear in the fandom people referring to Strange Supreme, and it's this version where, like, at one point he actually pulls through a bug, and he steals his cape and then sends the creature back because he said, "I draw the line of bugs." But so he has this like Dracula-esque cape, so you can see Strange Supreme, and he looks darker, and sometimes he looks demon-esque. Yeah.
I think that one of the things too that I bounced off of episode 1 and 2 was they really closely hewed to the original storyline, And so I was like, well, I'm just rewatching the movie. Do I want my time in this? Where this one sounds like it has some, even though it's closely in on the story, it has some really dramatic tension to it.
No, it does.
Heavy
It
hitting
does.
story.
It really does. This was a great episode, probably my favorite as well. And just to see, the what if version. What if Strange did this? This was another direct callback to my reading comics when I was a kid. Like, what if the Phoenix had not died? You know what I mean? Like these thoughts, these sorts of comics where it was just like, man, what we thought we knew and how we saw it happen. So cool to watch it happen in a different way.
Yeah.
Right.
And this was that.
Yeah. Although, so I guess he must not have not blipped in this universe if he became Sorcerer Supreme, because that's why he didn't become Sorcerer Supreme in 636, because he blipped away. So Wong got it. So I guess he stuck around. But I keep thinking, the Ancient One says her death motivated you to become who you are. And I'm like, he's going to be so mad when he meets 636 Strange and finds out he just crushed his hands.
Right.
All right, ready for episode 5?
So, okay, episode 5. This is the episode that launched a new spinoff. What if zombies? Which is kind of a ridiculous title, but not a sentence. Moving on. Directed again by Brian Andrews, written by Matthew Chauncey. And the change is when Hulk falls back to Earth during the events of Infinity War, he finds a zombie apocalypse underway. So nobody cares that Thanos is coming because they're all undead. Tony and a couple other Avengers show up to take out the children of Thanos, but then they turn on Bruce because they're zombies. Though Strange and Wong are now zombies in this universe, Strange's cape, the Cloak of Levitation, is on Bruce's side and helps him survive until the Wasp shows up with a storm of bugs that devour the zombie Avengers, to Bruce's disgust. Spider-Man swoops down and picks him up, swinging him up to their high-up hideout in the city. The other rooftop survivors are Happy Hogan, Ant-Man's Russian friend Kurt, Bucky Barnes, Sharon Carter, and General Okoye of the Dora Milaje. And we find out that the zombie plague was started by Hank Pym again. When he went to the
Hank Pym's doing dirty.
When he went to the quantum realm to look for his wife, she picked up a little brain-bending quantum virus, which was then unleashed on humanity. R.I.P. Hank Pym and Scott Lang, R.I.P. humanity. When the Avengers came to help, their zombification made everything superpowered worse. There's another survival camp, though, at S.H.I.E.L.D.'s old Camp Lehigh in New Jersey, and they claim to have found a cure. Our crew goes to Grand Central, New York City, and when the zombie Avengers show up and all hell breaks loose again, we lose Happy, but the rest manage to hotwire a train and get out of there. There's like a second of chill time, and then Zombie Cap is eating Sharon, and Bucky and Hope have to take him out. But some of Sharon's zombie guts leaked into a cut on Hope's shoulder. She goes slow. She fades slowly, arguing with them to kill her while they argue they could be minutes from a cure. But once she's gone, we've got a zombie who can turn into a giant, but not before she carries them in giant form over the zombie horde between their broken down train and Camp Lehigh, where the survivors notice the zombies don't even try to come inside. They find Vision there, who says it's the Mind Stone that keeps them at bay. He says he's been experimenting with its power as a cure, and the chatty, severed head of Scott Lang reveals himself as a positive outcome of those experiments. And Okoye says Wakanda, the last human sanctuary on Earth, has the technology to distribute this cure. So Vision isn't so enthusiastic, though, and when Bucky finds a partially eaten T'Challa, they find out the camp is a trap laid by Vision to feed his zombified Scarlet Witch bride. Her powers are too strong to be treated with the Mind Stone, and she takes out Kurt and Okoye, but Vision helps the rest get out. He pulls the Mind Stone out of his own head to give it to them, killing himself because he can't leave Wanda, but he can't force himself to kill her either. Even zombified, she's devastated over Vision's death. Bucky stays behind to distract her, giving the remainder a head start. She bites Bruce, and he takes her on, allowing partially eaten T'Challa, Peter Parker, and the cloak of Ant-Man head levitation to narrowly escape the grasp of giant zombie Hope and head toward Wakanda with the Mind Stone, the hopeful cure to save this universe. In the final shot, we see the zombie hordes banging on the force field around Wakanda, led by a zombie Thanos. His Infinity Gauntlet contains every stone except the Mind Stone.
I mean, it's zombies. What could be better than that? Zombie superheroes and supervillains. I mean, this is a rollicking good time. I didn't need a plot. I didn't need a plot. I just needed zombies. That's it. I was in from inception. So it was really cool to see. Yeah, I liked it.
So should this go on my list of
I mean, it depends how you feel about zombies. I mean, I think some of it's not one of my favorite of the season, although I do like the zombie premise, but it's not one of my favorite just because some of the lines just land wrong to me. Like when Okoye takes out Zombie Sam, she's like, "Oh, that was your friend. Sorry about that." And Bucky's like, "Oh, I should be sad, but I'm not." I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, it's the cringe humor is my only problem. But then there are other lines that kind of make me laugh, like when Happy gets zombified and he has the Iron Man glove. He's still saying "blam blam" like he was saying before. So it's a mixed bag for me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just zombies, man. It's zombies.
Right.
You know what I mean?
If you're down for zombies.
If you're down for some zombie action, then yeah, watch it. If you're not, you can skip it. It's nothing that.
There's a lot of discussion. Do you think that Spider-Man and Hope were flirting? Because a lot of people, and it feels a little weird because of the age gap.
It does. I think, definitely. So I think the comic, the Marvel Zombie comic, did it better, obviously. But again, this was, it was cool to watch.
We find out, I think it's prime Peter Parker. You know, we have his earnestness with, "I don't think I can lose another friend today." And we find out that basically he was saved from zombie fate because he turned down Tony when he offered him the spot on the Avengers in this universe.
In this universe.
He says, "My Aunt May says, or used to say." So it's like, poor R.I.P. Aunt May again.
Yeah, again, another one. So, but it was cool. It was cool. It was cool to see the zombies. That's what I keep going back to. Again, the plot of the story,
I don't mind the plot.
The storytelling, some of, like you said, some of the conversations and the lines fall flat. None of that mattered to me because I wanted to see more, brains. So it was cool. So it was cool.
I love the kitschy intro videos that they do when they land on the rooftop. It reminded me a little bit like Ms. Marvel.
That was cool.
With these are the rules we use
cool.
to stay alive. Just a fun little aside.
Yeah. That was cool.
All right, episode 6.
What if Killmonger rescued Tony Stark? Directed by Brian Andrews, written by Matthew Chauncey. The change. When the military convoy Tony Stark is traveling with in Afghanistan during the events of Iron Man 2008 is attacked, Killmonger shows up and rescues him, preventing him from being captured and thus preventing him from becoming Iron Man. Tony makes Killmonger the chief security officer at Stark Industries instead of Happy. Killmonger says he was on a deep undercover operation inside 10 Rings, out Obadiah Stane as a traitor, getting him out of the way faster. So then Tony promotes Killmonger to Stane's old job, COO. Pepper is skeptical. She goes to Rhodey for info on Killmonger, but his profile checks out. He's deadly, but he's clean. Other than the killing part, which is okay with Rhodey as long as it's done for the government. Pepper is still suspicious. Killmonger's got Tony's ear, who's eager to help him build combat drones when he shares his idea in the Gundam design.
I like anime. What?
I'm cool with it. They just need vibranium. I mean,
that's what he says. I like that.
I know. They just need vibranium. Pepper is again trying to be the voice of reason, arguing they cannot hire an arms dealer, Ulysses Claw, to get it. Killmonger surprisingly agrees, so they send Rhodey as the go-between to buy black market Dora Milaje spear. T'Challa shows up as the Black Panther, taking everyone out but Rhodey and Claw. Then Killmonger shows up, disabling and killing his cousin with a sonic taser and framing it on the dead Rhodey, taking the Black Panther suit to go. He and Claw were in cahoots. This was all a setup. Tony caught wind of what happened on security footage. When he confronts Killmonger, Killmonger kills him too. Not even the finished Gundam bot can save him. And since Killmonger used the Dora Milaje spear, the Wakandans get blamed, framing it as an act of revenge for T'Challa's death. Pepper and Happy are looking at Killmonger like he's more suspect than ever because, how was none of this captured on security camera? General Ross is on his side, so Killmonger gets his Gundam army. I can't stop laughing when I say that. Killmonger kills Claw and carries his corpse into Wakanda as a gift, announcing his connection to the royal family. He pretends to save them from his own robot army, and Thunderbolt Ross is like, whoa, Wakanda is real. Let's get rid of all of them. Africans can't have all this power. No. That doesn't work out for him. Killmonger, having proven himself in battle, is given the heart-shaped herb to officially become the next Black Panther. He and T'Challa argue on the ancestral plane, and Tony is being cast as a martyr in General Ross's new war on Wakanda. Pepper is like, I swear everyone around me has lost it, but there's someone who shares her suspicions and desire to take down the man who took out the people they love. A death chair swivels around, revealing T'Challa's sister Shuri. Then, maybe.
Yeah, this one got a mixed reception, but it was one of my favorites on the first watch, and it's maybe upper middle of the pack for me this time. I think it's a much more effective serial killer story than the Hank Pym one. What did you think of it, Sean, when you first saw it?
I didn't like it at first. When I initially watched the episode, I didn't like it. I had issues with Killmonger just being able to infiltrate Tony's confidence so easily, because at this moment in time, Tony is effectively still an alcoholic. He's not really in control of Stark Industries. So I would think that they would have those other characters like Happy and Pepper, who he would actually, pay more attention to and how they feel about things, than just completely say, oh, this is my new best friend because he saved my life.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there would be more of some sort of I don't want to say control, but there would be, it just didn't seem real to me or right to me that he placed all his trust in Eric as soon as he did. Like, it wasn't earned.
I feel like the plot, and that's one of the things in What If in general is, the episodes are short and they pack a lot in. And so the plot sometimes moves a little too quickly to be believable. It's like, yeah.
Right. Like, he effectively became his best friend. He pushed Rhodey to the side. And I just don't think that's, true to those characters.
Although he's douchier because he doesn't have that captivity experience. So they communicate that with us, that his time being a prisoner and building that suit for himself made him more responsible. Yeah.
Changed him. Right.
Yeah. I love, though, some of the lines that Killmonger gets. Well, there's some interesting ideas. Like, there's Killmonger says that Rhodey's wearing the uniform of his oppressors, and Rhodey says, got to be part of the system to change it, which is something I see coming back in Marvel, both the comic books and the MCU over and over again. And I think the line when Killmonger kills Tony and he's like, we're not fighting the same battles, Tony. He regrets killing him, but and Tony's like, what? Two gear-headed orphans trying to do right by our fathers? And Killmonger responds, the difference between you and me is that you can't see the difference between you and me.
See the difference.
And I think that's an all-timer line. Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good line.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's fire.
It is. The thing I would say for, I think, the Rhodey perspective is that Marvel has been shifting away from him being this, super gung-ho pro, USA type of character in the last few years. So that felt off to me as well because, reading Rhodey for the last, 5-10 years, he hasn't been that, right? And, he's, first and foremost, he's a superhero, not an agent of the U.S. government, like in the comic, this past decade. So there's a big shift in his character development in the writing that wasn't reflected in this show, and that kind of put me off as well. Killmonger's, his story, Eric's story is going to resonate whenever he shows up. You know what I'm saying? Like he has one of the most compelling raison d'etre that any villain has.
And
right, he has one. Of the,
I know, and Michael B. Jordan too. In fact, we can't. That's also this character is just gonna every time it's gonna hit. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, every time, and like I said, I didn't enjoy it on my first viewing, but on my other viewings, it grew on me, especially the scene with him and T'Challa on the ancestral plane,
right?
Which is the scene that he had with Shuri and Black Panther 2, flipped. You know what I mean? So it was really that scene was really well done. It was really well done.
Yeah.
So it doesn't rank as high. It's in my top 5, but not my top.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the backlash also was because people were upset with What If season 1 in general, how often Tony Stark died, and there was the idea that maybe they're trying to clear him out of as many realities as possible because, Robert Downey Jr. is too expensive to have back until Secret Wars. So we got to have like one that comes back in Secret Wars. But Secret Wars. But I did like Shuri ended this at the end. Mr. Stark was a genius, but he was not the only genius. And that really stuck with me. This is obviously before Wakanda Forever came out and everything. And I was like, yeah, that's Shuri's one to watch.
Right. Yeah. And, and again, these are the things that Marvel has been hinting at and going towards expanding characters and giving you new ideas and new ways to look at characters. And, definitely Shuri has been portrayed on screen as, super high genius level intellect in the MCU and is, being reflected across the board in all properties, comics, animation, movies, which is a good thing.
Yeah, the next episode is definitely, for me, one of the weaker ones, but it's kind of fun in a rewatch. I don't hate it. It's episode 7, What If Thor Were an Only Child? And again, directed by Brian Andrews, written by A.C. Bradley. And the change is in this reality, Odin didn't adopt Loki. Instead, he returned the blue baby to the frost giants. So Thor grew up an only child. Yeah. So we're set during the timeline of the Thor movie, and Jane Foster and our favorite sassy scientist Darcy are studying an astronomical anomaly similar to the start of Thor, but Thor, who shows up, hasn't had that pesky brother Loki there to worry about, which actually pushed him into learning more responsibility, we figure out through this story. Thor's dad has just entered the Odin sleep. His mom is visiting her sister, and he's decided to slip off to the most backwater planet he can think of, somewhere Heimdall will not be watching, so he can throw a giant intergalactic rager. So Sif and the Warriors 3 are in on it, and the guest list is a who's who of the cosmic MCU. We've got Nebula, Drax, Korg, the Skrulls, the Game Master, even Sartor and the Executioner, but everybody's just here to have a good time. Jane, however, knows that the anomaly she and Darcy were studying ended in a small planet being destroyed, RIP Alpha Star, and she begins to worry about this party. But Thor assures her Alpha Star was really just more of an asteroid and on its way out anyway. And also, Thor is like super hot, and he's into Jane. So Darcy gets stuck as wing woman with Howard the Duck declaring it not a date, but several drunken hours later, as the party spreads around the planet, she's marrying him in a quickie Elvis impersonator ceremony. The next morning, Jane wakes up.
This sounds wild.
It's a big party. The next morning, Jane wakes up with a wicked hangover, half-naked bodies sprawled all over the Vegas suite she finds herself in, and Agent Rumlow and Maria Hill are banging on the door. After a party accident the night before...
Knocking on the door.
Banging on the door with their fists. I said it was a party. No, Maria Hill is not here to party. After an accident landed Fury in a coma, Maria is the acting director of S.H.I.E.L.D., and she needs Jane to tell her about this anomaly she was studying. Maria reveals that this isn't Earth's first alien rodeo, and she breaks out the Captain Marvel beeper. Loki shows up to the party, but he's a big blue frost giant, and it turns out he and Thor are besties in this reality. Brothers from another mother, they call each other. But before Loki can help Thor take things up a notch, Captain Marvel shows up to poop on the party. Thor won't go, so they fight around the world, destroying things even more, until Thor eventually wins by pinning her under his hammer, and Maria's disappointed in Carol. She wants her to use her full power, but Carol says that could destroy the world. And then Maria kicks Jane, who keeps trying to protect Thor, and Darcy, who won't stop fangirling over Carol, out of the meeting. Maria gets Carol to lead Thor to the Mojave Desert to fight him there, readying some nukes as backup over Agent Coulson's objections. But Jane has a more effective plan. One of Darcy's offhand comments has given her the idea to call Thor's mom. She uses science to get in touch with Heimdall, who whisks her off to see Frigga, where Jane tells her what's going on. Frigga astral projects to Thor, stepping in just as Maria was going to set off the nukes. And Thor claims he only came to Midgard, or Earth as the locals call it, to study as part of a cultural exchange. Frigga says she's coming in person to see for herself, and Jane says she'll help Thor sell his cover story if he cleans up the mess he made. Loki's immediately out on cleanup duty, but Thor manages to bully most of the rest into setting things right, a little too right in the case of the formerly leaning Tower of Pisa. So when Frigga arrives, the study group of Asgardians she finds looks legit. Of course, Frigga doesn't buy it, but Captain Marvel also shows up to sell the story, so Frigga lets it go. And Thor says Jane wasn't cool to call his mom, but she was right. And he asks her on a date to a planet of unicorns. All seems well, until a portal opens and a bunch of Ultron sentry drones pour through. The end?
Jeez, that was a packed episode. I'm having trouble keeping up with your recap.
But, I mean, it was also kind of the most frivolous of the bunch. It was just like, let's have a party episode where a bunch of crazy stuff happens. So I don't hate it for that reason. You know, that's what it wanted to be.
Right.
What did you think of it, John?
Right on.
Yeah. I liked it. It was one of my favorites. Yeah, it's in my top 5. It was one of my favorite episodes. I really liked. I thought it was just fun. You know, a break. You know, from seriousness and taking it. You know, these stories taking themselves seriously. You know, and I like the aspect of what Thor would be without Loki, as you know, constantly by his side, causing him to maybe become a better version of himself. Like he learns that lesson because of Loki, which, you know, ties in nicely with what we've seen from the Loki series as well. Right. So I, you know, from first watching it, I thought it was cool. I thought it was really funny. Some really great spots, and, you know, seeing Thor just be like a what you could imagine the Thunder God and the Prince of Asgard to be, a spoiled brat, basically. You know what I mean? And come to find out that Frigga is a whole lot more powerful than we give her credit for. Thor's mom, right? Because he's scared shitless of what's going to happen if she finds out what he's been doing. And it's a cool little, you know, side way to see these characters. And I enjoyed it. I liked it. It didn't take itself seriously at all. And I think that was great.
I mean, a lot of the humor did not work for me. Some of it did, like the stupid humor, like, what was that boom? Did you boom? I only boom in private. That was funny.
Yeah, I only boom in private.
But I have to say, they used some of my favorite female characters, and I didn't enjoy the way they were characterized in this, which again is some part of it's like just the speeding over things, but it's also like, I don't know, what are they doing with Darcy marrying Howard the Duck? And then Loki's like trying to like, pick up artist.
Yeah.
It's just, but it was also kind of low-key heartbreaking that Frigga is not, she's so important in the MCU to Loki as his mother. And in this, he's like, not my mother, not my problem.
Yes. And that's, the dynamic between the brothers, I think, this is the what if, what if these brothers were not, by each other's sides, what would they be? And I think that calls into question a lot of things, especially in hindsight, viewing it through the lens that I viewed Loki, the series.
Yeah. I have one time I got really mad at Thor in this was when he knocks down Stonehenge and he's like, "Oh no, your weird rocks have fallen over." And I was like, "Get him, Carol, sick." He fixes it later. It's fine.
So yeah, I enjoyed that episode. It was fun.
It's a fun, silly, frivolous one. Yeah.
So should I put that on my list of things I should watch?
It depends. If it sounds,
it doesn't need to be the first one.
Yeah, if it sounds appealing to you, then go for it. Just know what you're going in.
You're not missing anything by not watching it. Basically.
Okay. All right.
Episode 8. What if Ultron won? Directed by Brian Andrews, written by Matthew Chauncey. This is part 1 of a 2-part story. The Change. The Avengers don't steal the vibranium body of Ultron that he created for himself, so Vision is never born, and Ultron wins. The age of Ultron begins, led by a more powerful Ultron who looks but doesn't sound like the Vision we know. What happens? We open on Black Widow and Hawkeye, now fitted with a robo-arm, fighting Ultron's hordes. They're in Russia, looking for the key to take Ultron down. Black Widow wants to take out satellite networks so Ultron can't launch all the nukes in the world, but Ultron kills Tony and it's too late. Total global devastation. And Ultron says, at last, peace. Then Thanos walks through the portal with an almost full Infinity Gauntlet, and Ultron just slices him in half, which was really cool. Now Ultra Ultron has a new Infinity Stone studded suit of armor, and he's aware that there are other worlds within his universe. He decides he needs to save them all from themselves. He takes out Asgard, the Sovereign, and the Guardians of the Galaxy, Sakaar with Korg and the Grandmaster, Ego, Xandar, that's where Captain Marvel finally intervenes. So he takes her out too, and all the other planets in that sector. It's done, at last, he declared. But now, without a purpose, robo-depression sets. That's when he starts to hear the Watcher narrating, and he realizes there are more universes than his own. The Watcher panics from his viewing place between the planes of the different universes. He says there is one last hope, and we cut to Black Widow and Hawkeye breaking into the KGB archives. Natasha is looking for an old AI, not linked to the online world, who can take down Ultron's code. The Watcher sees Zola's file and wants to nudge the box it's in, but he can't intervene according to his own rules. Clint gives up, but the Black Widow spots it in the very box he gave up on. And then Ultron bursts into the Watcher's plane and attacks him. Natasha and Clint boot up Zola, catch him up, and tell him that they'll destroy him, the last Zola copy, if he doesn't help. So he does. They manage to capture one of Ultron's sentries, inserting Zola's code and taking out his legs so he can't betray them. As the sentries swarm the building, Clint, tired of fighting, sacrifices himself, and Natasha carries Zola out. But Ultron's hive mind is out of range, where Zola can't reach it. Ultron is busy fighting the Watcher, punching him across universe after universe. Finally, the Watcher escapes him. Ultron lets him go with the words, "Run, watch. It doesn't matter. From here, I can see everything. No one can stop." And the Watcher, defeated, goes to the pocket universe where Strange Supreme is imprisoned after the events of episode 4. He asks Strange for help, and Strange asks him if he's ready to break his oath. Definitely not the end.
So yeah, David, I would say that this and the last 2 episodes of this season, this and the next one, you should definitely put on your must-watch list.
Yes.
Okay, got it. 8 and 9 on the list.
And I just,
Yes.
I love the apocalypse
8 and 9.
opening of this one with Natasha and Clint. And this is
Yes.
actually my favorite version of Hawkeye that I've ever seen. So it kind of makes me want
Oh, wow,
an animated Hawkeye series.
Okay. Okay.
They could have some fun with that. I
Yeah.
can see that happening.
I don't see why not.
Because he was an agent. He like cruised around, did a lot of stuff. He could do mission of the week.
Well, they
kind
could
of
also
things.
do the
Half an
Ronin
hour.
story during the blip. You don't want
I don't
that?
want
No? Okay.
I don't want that.
I love that. So Natasha finds the Red Guardian, Elysia was her dad, the one who raised her, kind of.
Yeah.
But she finds his shield and she uses it for the rest of the episode. And that was really cool. I would like to see more of Natasha and the shield.
This was really this was fun.
Yeah, this was fun.
This is what, this is what you can do with animation that you can't do in
Yeah.
live action. And this was it was well done. The action sequences were awesome. When he slices Thanos, it's just,
There was so much discussion about that.
man.
Not everybody was happy about
Yeah.
that because they were like, well, if it's that easy, then what was,
What was the big deal?
oh, the big
But of course, that version,
the big deal is that heroes don't
yeah,
kill.
and that version of Ultron didn't
That's
exist.
the big deal, right? That version of Ultron doesn't exist, and heroes don't kill. So this is a villain who has no compulsion about doing villainous things.
But
so even if we watch, at the end of what Endgame, at the beginning of Endgame, there's a lot of sadness when he decapitates Thanos. You know what I mean? Like, heroes don't do those sorts of things. So when people were like, "Oh, it was so easy," and how could he have done that? I'm like, well, he did it because he had no compulsion against doing it.
Yeah, it's rich of him that he blames the Watcher for not intervening in the suffering of all those worlds. And it's like, you're the guy causing the suffering wherever you can, like super rich.
Right, right.
But yeah, I love, there's one image in there where he almost becomes like Galactus and takes a bite out of the galaxy they're in. Like that's, again, those things you can do in animation.
That was really cool. That you can't do in live action. And the scene where you're talking about the apocalypse with Black Widow and Hawkeye, when they're running on the rooftop, there's just so many great little things going on in this. And just like the robots, the Ultrons climbing up after them,
right?
In the silo, just really good stuff. So definitely, this is a watch, David.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
And it rolls.
Awesome.
Sorry.
And then it into episode 9.
Rolls right into episode 9. What if the Watcher broke his oath? So directed by Brian Andrews, written by A.C. Bradley. The changes: the Watcher breaks his oath. And so what happens is it picks up right after the event of episode 8. And we go back to Captain Carter from episode 1, who's breaking into Bartok's boat with her universe's version of Black Widow. So not the Black Widow, we saw a different Black Widow. And the Watcher shows up in the sky and tells her she's been chosen. We then switch to a view of drones attacking a Dairy Queen where Ego is taking possession of his son, Peter Quill. And this is following on the events of episode 2. And then Star-Lord T'Challa rescues Quill, and the Watcher appears to tell T'Challa he's been chosen. A version of Tony and Gamora, who we'll meet in season 2 of What If. They're melting down an infinity gauntlet in the forge of Eitri, the king of the dwarves. And Tony is ironically pitching his armor around the world idea, or nay, the galaxy. When the Watcher shows up to collect Gamora, survivor of Sakaar, he calls her destroyer of Thanos, and clarifies, not you, Stark. Another dig at the Tony fans. And then he collects episode 6 Killmonger. Justice, Pepper, and Shuri are charging into battle to take him down. The next pick seems equally or even more unlikely, Party Thor from episode 7. Pulled from his battle with the Ultron drones who have infected his own universe. And this motley crew, they meet Strange Supreme in a replica of the pub where Steve and Peggy had their date in episode 1. And the Watcher says that this team has the perfect combination of skills and experience that alone will triumph over the Ultron threat. He dubs them the Guardians of the Multiverse. Their mission is to separate Ultron's body from the Infinity Stones. Thor will provide a distraction. Gamora will use her Infinity Stone-destroying machine, and the rest will fight. The Guardians have a toast. Strange delivers a terrible, depressing speech. T'Challa's much better at it. And then Thor shoots off celebratory lightning, which attracts the attention of Ultron earlier than planned. Whoops. Strange loads them up with protection charms, and the team gets into position. Working together, T'Challa manages to steal the Soul Stone from Ultron. Strange, who occasionally has trouble holding his human form, unleashes some of his inner demons and then dumps a mountain of zombies from the zombie universe on top of Ultron, including zombie Scarlet Witch. Ultron takes her out and the planet they're on, while the Guardians escape to another universe, Ultron's own universe, where they meet Apocalypse, Black Widow, now the sole survivor on her planet. She joins the team as Ultron comes back to fight. Strange is in full demon form by now, using every trick he knows, and Gamora uses the Soul Stone to power the Stone Eater and sick it on Ultron, seeming to destroy Ultron, but the Crusher was designed to destroy the stones in Gamora's world, not this one. So Ultron rises again with all 6 stones back. Realizing Strange is the one protecting the whole group, he turns his attention to him. Black Widow uses the distraction to load an arrow with a computer virus, the Zola code. And just as Strange is starting to flag in the fight against Ultron, Black Widow jumps off a rooftop in a motorcycle, shooting the arrow, and Captain Carter jumps off another rooftop, landing on Ultron's neck, pulling off his helmet so the arrow can pierce his eye. Zola is now inside Ultron and takes over his body, at which point Killmonger steps out of the shadows to take Ultron's armor with the stones for himself, saying he wants to fix all their worlds. The rest of the team is not on board, so he readies to fight them, but Zola Ultron wants the armor back, so he must face him instead. And as the two fight, Strange locks them in his pocket dimension prison, Zola Ultron and Killmonger perpetually fighting over the stones, neither ever getting them, and Strange is left to watch over this pocket dimension. The rest are sent back to their universes, to the moment where they were picked up, but Apocalypse Black Widow doesn't really have a world to go back to. So the Watcher returns her to a world very like 636 in the throes of the plot of the Avengers. This world has lost their Black Widow, and Fury knows this is a different Natasha, but he accepts her. Now it's the end, except there's a credit scene where Carter is back with her own Black Widow, who has found the Hydra Stomper, and there's someone inside, Natasha says with a smirk. End of season.
Oh, God, that is
So
like...
that pulled
I thought those previous ones were complex.
This was a longer
insane.
episode than the others, too. It pulls together every single episode except for episode 3, which is kind of funny. Just completely ignores episode 3. Every other episode, including one that didn't even make it into the first season, is there.
Wild. Absolutely wild. But watchable if I haven't watched all the other ones.
I mean, just watch the one before it. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, with the Crusher and the
Crusher is...
You don't need anything.
You won't even see that episode until season 2, where the Crusher comes from. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. You don't need anything. Just watch season 9.
Okay. So, which is funny because now we know how that episode with Gamora and the Game Master is going to end. But whatever. That's fine. I'm still happy to see it. It got delayed because of COVID, so.
Wow. Okay. That sounds like a wild ride. I definitely will check out 8 and 9 before season 2 starts.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
definitely.
Yeah.
There's some conversation about Peggy's love life. So we have Black Widow throughout the episode wants her to move on from Steve because he's long gone. But of course, Bernard, from accounting doesn't sound very appealing, which is, kind of taking those reverse lines from the Captain America movie. But But then we have the question, who's in the Hydra Stomper? Is it Steve? And then also in another point, there's a conversation where Strange says, in my universe, Steve Rogers received the serum. And Carter's like, oh, now that would be a sight to see. But there's also another ship going on. So at one point, Peggy is trying to convince the Apocalypse Black Widow to trust them. And she says, I know you. Your father is Ivan. Your dad is Elysia. And you are the one woman I trust to have my six. And out of that line, a universe of shippers is born. So it's all up in the air, but what happened with that?
All right. Wow.
So I going back, I would say watch 8, 9,
and
definitely.
And 4, for sure.
4 for sure. And then 2.
Yeah. And if anything else appeals to you, watch it. I mean, they're all worth it. They're short episodes, so they're all worth a watch.
8,
9, 4, and 2. Got it.
Yeah.
I'm hoping they
8, 9, 4, 2, 5.
4, 2, 5. Oh, okay.
The zombies.
All right.
Yeah.
That's a zombie.
I mean, the zombies are just fun.
8, 9
8
for
and 9
sure,
for sure, and 4 for sure, and 2 is a good one too.
Okay.
Yeah, everything else is up to your discretion. But definitely, like Elysia said, 8, 9, 4.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope in season 2 that they clarify how some of the lore works together, because some of the lore in this show seems to contradict other lore. Like, does Black Widow being in a new world cause an incursion? Do Infinity Stones work outside the universe or not? So a lot of these questions up in the air, but I think it's just, we shouldn't take this show too seriously. And if you don't, then it actually offers more than you expect.
Yes, agree with that.
Cool. Anything else? Let's
get into season 2 previews. Yeah.
Let's take a break, and then when we get back, we'll do the season 2. And we're back. Okay, after that amazing rundown of season 1, thank you, Elysia. That was a lot of wordsmithing that you did. That was incredible. Let's talk about our season 2 preview. It's going to be released December 22nd, and there's one episode a day, every day through the 30th on Disney Plus. And we've got a release of titles, Elysia. Is that right? We know every title.
Yeah,
that we're
and so
get?
This tells us what to expect also. So we've got episode 1 is going to be What If Nebula Joined the Nova Corps? And that's the one that I think we know the least about, but I'm guessing that might turn Jean's head. Episode 2 is What If Peter Quill Attacked Earth's Mightiest Heroes? And that seems to probably follow on the storyline where we saw, Ego trying to take over his son and T'Challa saving him. So episode 3 is What If Happy Hogan Saved Christmas? And that's the die-hard looking one that we keep seeing in the previews. And that's going to drop on Christmas Day. Episode 4 is What If Iron Man Crashed into the Grand Master? That's the story where we'll find out how Nebula ended up with that stone destroying machine. Episode 5 is What If Captain Carter Fought the Hydra Stomper? So that picks right up where season 1 ends, where they find the Hydra Stomper. I'm really worried about the word fought in the title here. Episode 6 is an interesting one because it's What If, and so I'm going to say this name the way that I think that it's said. We're going to have to, I don't speak Mohawk, I don't know this language, so we're going to have it clarified for us, but it's What If Cohorty Reshaped the World? And this features a brand new character invented for this show, not in the comics or anything. So yeah, that's very intriguing. What if Hela found the 10 rings? Sounds like a ton of fun. What if the Avengers assembled in 1602 is pulling from the Neil Gaiman comics of the 1602 comics? So that's going to be interesting. It's also going to feature a version of Wanda they're calling Merlin Wanda, and a bunch of Avengers as the Merry Men, apparently. And then the final episode will be What If Strange Supreme Intervened? So that's obviously picking up where we left off.
All right, so it's going to pull from the previous season.
Definitely. Do any of those stand out
Okay.
to you, David?
Maybe that last one is interesting, and maybe the Avengers assembling in 1602. I think those are, and this reshaping the world could be interesting just because it's this whole new storyline or a whole new character.
Yeah. What about you, Jean? What are you most excited for?
The Cohorte, the Hela, and the Strange.
Yeah.
So episode 206, 207, and 209. Those are the ones that I'm most looking forward to.
I think I'm feeling the same way. Although I'm very interested to see how the others continue. But yeah, I started to read this Neil Gaiman line of the comics because I was just intrigued, and the art style is really cool. I don't know if I don't think they're keeping the art style consistent within the show, but
yeah, they have.
But it should be a fun one. And the Peter Quill versus the Avengers one, I'm sorry, that is not going to be a continuation of what we saw, I guess, because this is set in 1988, this one. So we're going to get 80s lineup of Avengers, including, that's where we get T'Chaka.
Right. I don't think T'Chaka is in the Avengers.
No, I mean, in this version, he is.
Black Panther is not.
In this version, apparently, it's going to be Hank Pym, Bill Foster, who is like Goliath, Lawrence Fishburne last seen in Ant-Man 2. We got King T'Chaka is the Black Panther at the time. Bucky Barnes, I guess, but that's going to be interesting because if he's the Winter Soldier, how is he fighting? I don't know. We'll see. Wendy Lawson is an interesting one. So that's Annette Bening's character from Captain Marvel. And she plays a version called Star Force in this. And then Thor and Peggy's the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. at the time. Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's interesting. And then in the 1602 one, the lineup is apparently we've got Steve Rogers, Bucky Barnes, Scott Lang, and the Ant-Man, and there's going to be a blacksmith, Tony Stark, and Purple Hulk, Happy Hogan. So basically, the premise of this one is like, what if the Avengers were just born 400 years earlier, just for whatever weird freak of history?
Right. Just because.
So it's during the Elizabethan era. So we're talking like Shakespeare times.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be wild.
Yeah.
So I'm still on board with 6, 7, 9.
All right.
Like if they were to release all at once, I would do 6, 7. That would be my viewing order if they were, like binge drop.
Right.
So, yeah.
Cool. So I think we decided that we're going to do just one big episode, not dissimilar to how we did it today, where we do a little recap and our hot takes for the episodes that we watched. And if I remember right, we're going to try and record that. We're going to take some vacation a little bit over the holidays and make sure that everybody gets a little bit of rest and visiting family. I know everybody's got family plans and stuff like that. So I think we're going to get to record this episode on the 6th, right? And that's when we're going to do our Echo recap, our Echo context setup as well. So
yeah.
Good.
That sounds good.
Okay. Anything else on What If, or are we all
just
set up?
Season 2. I like season 1, and season 2 looks even better. So bring it on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hopeful feelings. Awesome. Well, let's talk about our upcoming programming schedule. Let's start with you, Elysia. What have you got planned for the Wool Shift?
Yeah, so we've got coming out probably around the same time as this, the holiday special. So in the book club, there's going to be the audio drama version of The Greatest Gift, the story on which It's a Wonderful Life is based. And in the public feed, Luke and we had a really fun time talking about It's a Wonderful Life, but also talking about a bunch of movies that were spun off of that. So that was a really fun episode. And we're going to...
Okay, cool. A little fun holiday podcast.
And we're going to be wrapping up the last 2 episodes of Beacon 23 just dropped as we're recording. So we're going to be doing that season wrap up. And also the Shift episode for the book club is in editing now.
Okay, great. And so far, and then you just released a, what was it, 3, 4, 5?
Right. So now we were going to do
23?
6 and 7 and then 8, but since they dropped 7 and 8 together, we're just going to do 6, 7, and 8.
Okay, that sounds great. And so far,
Yeah,
thumbs up.
I'm
Something
enjoying
definitely to
I'm
watch.
enjoying the season a lot. It's a character study, and and the main character is Beacon 23, which is the title, so that feels appropriate. But
Okay, that's interesting. Cool. And Dune
yes,
coverage.
and Dune coverage will begin in earnest with basically almost weekly in January and February, leading into the March 1st Part 2 premiere in the theaters.
Excellent.
Awesome.
The trailer is out for the movie. It looks interesting.
It looks amazing.
Yeah. I think Villeneuve, and I've said this before, I think he's really achieved the best look of the Dune world so far.
But we're going to talk about, David, you're going to join us to talk about our love of the 84 Lynch version too.
Oh, God. It's glorious. It's glorious in all its flaws and hot dumpster fire mess.
in the best possible way.
And that's right. And I did pick up that book, the oral history of Dune, and I've been sort of paging through it. It's so much information, but I read some chapters about David Lynch and how he, as a director, established, and how the mess that the Dune property, the licensing was, and all the iterations that it went through. So it's a fascinating take, and we'll definitely talk about that book more when I'm on the podcast with you and Luke, which I am really looking forward to.
Yeah, me too. It's going to be a fun one. I know that Luke's really looking forward to that episode too, because that was the movie that he watched over and over growing up.
Properly Howard Movie Review is finished up with their last season of movie review, so we'll see what they're going to get up to next year when they kick off a new season. But until then, if you're missing Steve and Anthony in your life, check out the Severance podcast. This is going to be a joint podcast. So we set up a whole separate feed just for that. And you can find a link for that in the show notes. Also for Will Shift Dust, you can find a link for that in the show notes, or just search for Severance Lorehounds and you will find it. And we did that setup so that once season 2 starts, Steve, Anthony, John, and I, the 4 of us, are all going to cover it episode to episode, week to week. And so you'll have the season 1 recap that Steve and Anthony have done, and they're just about finished with that. They've been dropping every Fridays. And then you'll have that all available for you if you want to do a rewatch or if you're doing it now. And then we'll roll right into season 2. We don't know when season 2 is going to come out. They still haven't announced it, but we are keeping our eyes for that date, and we'll let everyone know once we also know. For the Lorehounds ourselves, we have our top 10 Second Breakfast podcast, which we'll release to everybody on in and around Christmas Day. We've got so much extra content that I think we're going to actually have to split this into 2 podcasts. So we had conversations with all of our co-hosts, with John, Elysia, Brandon, Marilyn, Anthony. We talked about your top 3s as well as the bonus questions. And then we've got a special guest for our breakdown of the holiday movie that we chose, which was Falling for Christmas, which was a Lindsay Lohan vehicle that was supposed to be her, sort of reboot her career. Anyway, we have a friend named Anna who writes a Substack, and she does takedowns of holiday rom-coms, and they're hilarious and a lot of fun. So we're invited her onto the podcast for that. So I think we're going to package all those up into an episode, and then we'll have our normal Second Breakfast podcast where John and I sort of talk a little bit about life, but then we're going to do our big top 10 end of year reviews. We've also just covered on a one shot. Let's see, we had Napoleon that Elysia and we did. Brandon and I did a one shot on Leave the World Behind.
The Creator's coming out.
Elysia, you and
Doctor Who we did, and The Creator's coming out too.
Yeah, The Creator, which will drop on the 20th. So whenever this podcast comes out, December 20th, we will release the podcast that we recorded way back in October, November, or something like that to coincide with that. And then you guys just had a podcast. Yeah, Elysia, you and John and a friend of yours, Simon, your Who Daddy. Your Who Master?
I said Who Mentor. Yeah.
Who Mentor, that's better. Your Who Mentor. Hopefully that podcast went well.
That was a lot of fun. And I was so glad that we had someone who grew up there, who could tell us about his experiences as a kid watching Who.
And then I believe we have our final chapter of Tehanu on our Book Nook series, which is also awaiting editing and will be released. So there's a ton more content coming out in December. Oh, and Rebel Moon. The three of us are going to cover Rebel Moon, the new Zack Snyder. Whew, boy, the internet is afire with the with the reviews. So it's a Zack Snyder special.
I'm bringing an open mind.
So am I.
Yes. What was the Las Vegas Zack Snyder one that he did, the zombie?
Oh, Army of the Dead?
I enjoyed it. It was completely ridiculous, but I actually had a fun time. It was just goofy and, I don't know. So if Rebel Moon is anything like that in the sense of this is just Zack Snyder throwing buckets of paint at the wall, I'm sure it's going to be...
It might be a good time.
Well, right. I saw a review I posted on the Discord that was just like, it's too woke, too many women, too political. I'm like, sign me up.
That's what I'm talking
Venn diagram overlap. Awesome. Okay, well, I think this is going to wrap it up for the MCU coverage for the year. We won't have an MCU podcast until the new year comes up with season 2 and Echo preview or context setup episode. That'll all be in one episode, and then we'll get right into Echo with the Binge Drop podcast. So, John and Elysia, it has been a very productive
great year. Yes, it has. And Happy New Year.
Yeah. Happy New Year to you.
Yeah. Just remember, the Watcher's always watching.
The Lorehounds podcast is produced and published by the Lorehounds. You can send questions and feedback and voicemails at thelorehounds.com/contact. Get early and ad-free access to all Lorehounds podcasts at patreon.com/thelorehounds. Any opinions stated are ours personally and do not reflect the opinion of or belong to any employers or other entities.